You never really expect betrayal to come from inside your own blood, from strangers, yes, from colleagues, neighbors, acquaintances, sure, but from your own son, that one takes your breath away. I still remember the exact day it started to sink in, October 12th. Funny how dates like that carve themselves into your memory like a scar that never fades. The air had that sharp bite of fall leaves crunching underfoot, and I was sitting on the porch of the very house I built with my own 2 hands, sipping coffee like I'd done 1,000 mornings before. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was history. It was family. It was me. And in his eyes, it was already his, as if I'd stopped existing before I even drew my last breath. Let me back up for a moment. I worked 35 years in construction, long hours, rough hands, backaches that never really went away. But that job gave me something. It gave me this home, every paycheck, every overtime hour, every contract signed. I funneled it into building a place where my family could be safe, steady, proud. I laid the foundation myself. I remember pouring the concrete sweat dripping into the mix as I smoothed it out, thinking, this will outlast me, this will protect them when I can't. And for years it did. The birthdays, the Christmases, the ordinary Sundays with pancakes and newspapers, all of it happened inside those walls. That house wasn't just mine, it was our family's backbone, or so I thought. My son Daniel grew up there, slept under that roof, ran down that staircase, left muddy shoes by that door. I carried him on my shoulders through those halls. When he was little, I taught him how to ride a bike in the driveway. I helped him with his first resume at the kitchen table. Everything he is, it grew inside that home. So imagine my surprise when one day he looked me in the eye and made it clear that I didn't belong there anymore. Dad, you should think about downsizing, T. His place, it's too much for you now. You don't need it. Maybe it's time you let go. Let go, Daniel. This house is mine. Yeah, but let's be honest, you're not going to be around forever. It's basically mine already. You ever hear words that cut so deep you don't even feel it at first? Like being hit by a car but not realizing the bones are broken until you try to stand. That was me, sitting in my own living room listening to my son talk about my home like it was a waiting inheritance, a prize he'd already won. Of course I didn't explode, I didn't argue, I just nodded. Let him think his words slipped by me unnoticed. But inside I knew something had shifted. Because when your own child starts treating you like you're temporary in the life you built, the ground beneath your feet starts to crack. And me, I wasn't about to get buried under my own foundation. I'll be honest with you. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I hadn't taught him gratitude well enough. Maybe I'd spoiled him, made life too easy, given him too much too soon. Because I gave that boy everything. School support bailouts when he needed them. Every time life threw him a curveball, I caught it. Every time he fell, I was the one cushioning the landing. But somewhere along the line he stopped seeing me as a father and started seeing me as an obstacle, an old man in his way. And when that happens, well, you either step aside or you remind them who laid the ground they're walking on. One night I was cleaning out an old drawer, found a picture of Daniel when he was 10. Big grin, missing front tooth, holding up the first birdhouse we built together in the backyard. I stared at it for a long time. That kid in the photo, he looked at me like I hung the moon, like I was untouchable, unshakable. And I wondered, where did that boy go? When did he turn into this man who wanted me erased from my own story? The answer didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. That October night I made myself a promise I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't plead, I wouldn't beg for space in the home I built. Instead, I'd watch, I'd listen, I'd let him believe he was pulling ahead while I quietly tightened my grip on the reins. Because the thing Daniel forgot, the thing so many people forget, is that respect isn't inherited, it's earned. And if you throw it away, well, I have a way of taking back what's mine. So that's where this story begins. Not with shouting, Not with slammed doors, but with silence, a silence sharp enough to cut. My son tried to push me out of my own home, but instead of stepping aside, I decided something else. I decided to remind him who it really belonged to. And once I made that choice, there was no going back. You know, people don't just wake up one day and betray you. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, quietly, like rust, eating away at steel. By the time you notice it, the damage has already spread deep. Looking back, I can see the signs were there with Daniel long before he tried to shove me out of my own home. When Daniel was in his 20s, he had that reckless fire most young men do, wanted to prove himself, wanted to make money fast. He bounced between jobs one month selling cars, the next month talking about some business startup, then quitting to chase another shiny idea. And every time he came up short, you know who picked up the slack? Me. When the rent was late, it was me writing the check. When the credit card companies called, it was me on the other end, negotiating. When his car broke down, I was under the hood, grease on my hands even after working 10-hour days. Myself, I never complained. That's what fathers do, right? You step in, you cover, you protect. But here's the thing. The more I gave, the less he respected it. Gratitude turned into expectation, and expectation turned into entitlement. Take the house, for example. He moved back in more than once after failed jobs or breakups. Each time I welcomed him, no questions asked. I told myself it was temporary. A few months until he got back on his feet, but temporary stretched into years. He left dirty dishes in the sink, left bills unpaid, treated the place less like a home and more like a crash pad. And still I let it slide because he was my son. But what did I get in return? Little digs, sarcasm, subtle ways of reminding me that in his mind, this house was already his. He'd walk around pointing out things he'd fix up when it was his turn. He'd criticize how I did things. Even rearranged furniture without asking, like he was already taking ownership. It was my house, but I felt like a guest in it. Dad, you ever think about how much easier it'd be if you just moved into one of those retirement communities? You'd have people your age, no stairs to climb, no yard work. Sounds nice, right? I built this home with my own hands, Daniel. I'll leave it when I'm good and ready. I guess I'll just have to wait. Then, wait, like my death was a countdown clock he was already watching. That's when the bitterness really started to creep in, because there's nothing worse than looking at your own flesh and blood and realizing he's not seeing you anymore. He's only seeing what you can give him, what he'll inherit, what he thinks he's owed. I didn't raise him to be that way, or at least I didn't think I did. I taught him the value of hard work. I taught him to respect what's his. But somewhere along the way, he twisted that into something else. Maybe it was my fault for cushioning him too much. Maybe I protected him so well from struggle that he never learned how to stand on his own. But knowing that doesn't erase the sting when the disrespect finally shows its teeth. One Thanksgiving, the family was all here, cousins, uncles, everyone. We were sitting around the table and somebody joked about how nice the house was. You know what Daniel said? Yeah. It's mine eventually. The table chuckled, brushed it off as a joke, but I didn't laugh because I saw his eyes. He wasn't joking. And in that moment, surrounded by family, I felt invisible, like I was already a ghost at my own table. That's when it started to shift inside me. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was watching. I was taking mental notes. Because every sarcastic comment, every dismissive remark, every careless assumption that I was temporary, it was building a case. Not for him. For me. A case that one day I'd bring to the surface when he least expected it. And the worst part, he thought he was clever. Thought I didn't notice, but I noticed everything. The way he stopped asking for permission to use the house. The way he introduced it to others. My place, he'd say, like I wasn't even standing there. The way he'd brush me aside when decisions came up, acting like he was already head of the household. But he forgot something critical. The papers didn't have his name. The deed didn't belong to him. The foundation wasn't laid with his sweat. He had convenience, comfort, entitlement, but not ownership, not yet. And I wasn't about to hand it over, Daniel. Dad, you're stuck in the past. You don't understand how things work anymore. When this is mine, I'll do it right. You'll see. Oh, I see plenty. Daniel, more than you realize. That was the injustice. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. My son stopped seeing me as a man, stopped seeing me as his father. I was just a placeholder to him, someone taking up space until he could claim what he thought was rightfully his. And that's a wound deeper than any stranger could cut because it comes from your own blood. But here's the thing about wounds. Some of them bleed you dry and some of them wake you up. And this one, it woke me up. He thought he was pushing me out. He thought he was winning. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't see through his arrogance, was that every step he took against me was just tightening the noose around his own future. Because you can push a father only. So far. After that, he stops being just a father. He becomes something else. And Daniel was about to find out exactly what that meant. You ever feel a moment snap into place, so cleanly, so sharply that you know your life just shifted, like a switch flipped inside you and there's no going back? That's what happened the day Daniel crossed the final line. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting match, no fists slammed on the table. It was quiet, subtle, but that made it sting even worse. I'd come home from running errands, walked through the front door, groceries in my arms, and there he was, Daniel, standing in the living room laughing with a friend on speakerphone, and he said clear as day, "Yeah, I've basically got the place already. Dad's just there, you know. He won't be around forever. Once it's mine, I'm going to knock down that wall and open the space up. You'll see." I froze. Bags cutting into my hands, not because I didn't already know that's how he thought, but because he said it out loud to someone else, like it was fact, like I wasn't even alive in that moment. I didn't confront him right then. I didn't say a word. I just set the groceries down on the counter, sat at the table, and listened to him finish his call. He walked past me afterward, barely looked at me, just a muttered, "Hey, Dad," like I was the tenant, not the owner. And right there, sitting in the house I built with my own hands, the house I paid for brick by brick, I knew I wasn't invisible, I wasn't powerless, I was done. Done cushioning him, done swallowing the disrespect. Done letting him treat my life's work like a waiting room until he could take over. That was the moment I shifted from father to strategist. And let me tell you, that shift changes everything. Because when a man stops hoping for respect and starts planning for justice, the entire balance of power tilts quietly, permanently. Over the next few days, I didn't say much. Daniel probably thought I was sulking, maybe stewing. Truth is, I was studying, watching how he moved in the house, how he carried himself like the heir apparent. The way he spread his things around, treated it all like it already had his name on it. I wasn't angry anymore. That's the part that scared even me a little. The anger burned out, and what was left was cold, precise, focused. And in that calm, I realized something. He'd already pushed me out. Emotionally, he'd already cut me loose. So why was I holding on? Why was I still protecting him, still shielding him from consequences? No, it was time to protect myself, protect what was mine, and the house. My house was the perfect place to start. That's when I decided he wasn't just going to learn a lesson. He was going to feel it, deep, real, in a way he couldn't laugh off, couldn't dismiss, couldn't shrug away with a smirk. He thought he had control. He thought he'd already won. But the truth, he'd built his little throne on sand, and I was about to pull the tide. I remember standing in the doorway of my own bedroom that night, lights off, the house quiet. Daniel was asleep in the next room. And I whispered to myself, "This ends on my terms." The words felt strange in my mouth, heavy but also freeing, like I'd just unlocked a door I didn't know was there. I wasn't going to scream at him. I wasn't going to beg for respect. I wasn't going to warn him at all. No, I was going to show him, in a way he'd never forget. People always think revenge is fire and rage. It isn't. It's ice, still patient, silent, until the moment it cracks. And that night, I chose my ice. I chose my silence. And I chose to let Daniel walk straight into the trap he'd built for himself. That was the turning point, the exact second my role changed. He thought I was background noise. He thought I was waiting to fade away, but I wasn't fading. I was sharpening. And Daniel had no idea just how sharp I could be. Once I flipped that switch inside me, it stopped being about yelling. It stopped being about dramatic scenes. It became a project because I know builders. We like PR. Objects. We like plans. We like things that end in a clean finish. So I treated this like any other job measure, twice cut, once. No theater, no theatrics, just work. I set up near the desk where I kept the papers, warranties, receipts from when we tiled the bathroom, the faded yellow envelope with the deed to the house tucked inside. I'd looked at that deed 100 times, but that night it looked different. It felt like a ledger of unfinished business. I spread everything out and started to make a list. Step 1, paperwork. I needed to know exactly what the legal truth was, whose name was on the deed, whose name was on the mortgage. Were there any joint accounts, any informal agreements? I called the county office, asked for a copy of the deed, and read every line like it was a blueprint for a safe. Ownership, liens, easements, all of it. If Daniel thought the house was his by right, I intended to let the facts do the talking. Yes, sir. The deed shows you as the owner. There's no co-ownership listed. Is there something you need clarified? No, just making sure I understand where things stand. There. It was. Solid as concrete. My name, not his, not yet. That confirmation was a little like finding a structural soundness certificate on a project you feared might have rot. Step 2, finances. I reviewed bank statements, mortgage payments, transfers. I called the mortgage company politely, like an old customer asking for a status, and asked for payment histories. Every check I'd written for them, every payment I'd made, I documented. I made copies. Organized, labeled. If this ever needed to be seen by someone who mattered, the evidence would be immovable. I created a binder. Tabs, deed, payments, correspondence, contingencies. The binder wasn't just paperwork. It was a promise. If you understand men like me, you know we respect things that are orderly. Messy revenge is for the movies. This was going to be surgical. Step 3, timing. You don't neck the rug out at random. You choose a moment that maximizes effect and minimizes excuses. I started thinking about cycles, billing cycles, tax dates, school tuition, due dates. I wanted the consequences to arrive where they'd actually matter in the places Daniel cared about. Not humiliation for the sake of it, but clarity. Real, unavoidable reality. I circled a date in my notebook, the end of the month when the mortgage payment clears. I gave myself a buffer. No impulsive moves. You plan, then you wait, because patience amplifies impact. People convinced of their own rightness don't notice slow changes until they trip over them. Step 4. Silence as a tool. For years my voice had been asking, pleading, fixing. Now silence would be more telling than any scream. I stopped volunteering help. I stopped mentioning payments. When Daniel asked for money or favors, I deflected. No confrontations, no grand reveals, just absence. If he called and I declined, I did it politely. I didn't shout. People panic faster when there's no theatrics. Only proof I tried small things first. Called the mortgage company and asked what would happen if a payment wasn't made on time. I didn't tell them who I was. I made hypothetical questions. Then I watched. How did Daniel react when dinner wasn't delivered? When I didn't go fix a leaky pipe? He grumbled. He complained. He adapted. But adaptation isn't the same as ownership. It was the first data point. Step 5. The letter I drafted, a simple factual notice, not an accusation, not a screed. A clear, unemotional statement: as of this date, I would no longer make payments on the house or associated accounts. I practiced, making it sound like a business decision, because to him it had become a business. It was time to treat it like one. The first drafts were angry, the second drafts were cold. The third draft was nothing more than a line of facts. Facts cut cleaner than emotion. I printed it, signed it, and tucked a copy into that bind. I didn't plan to hand it to him immediately. It was insurance, a documented moment I could point to when he tried to spin the truth. Step 6, legal advice. I'm a builder, not a lawyer, and I wanted to avoid a mistake that would cost me more than pride. I scheduled a consultation. I told the lawyer the truth. Everything I'd done, everything I'd paid. He confirmed what I already knew. Legally, the house was mine to stop paying on. He outlined the realistic consequences, timelines for notices, grace periods, the ugly word foreclosure. He didn't sugarcoat it. It was practical, like reading a contract. If you stop payments, the bank will follow their policy. Notices, late fees, possibly a foreclosure in time. It's their process, not yours. Are you prepared for that? I am. I've got savings to cover my needs. I'm not doing this to ruin us for good. I'm doing this to force accountability. Step 7, contingencies. What if Daniel sold something? What if he took out loans? What if he threatened me? I ran the scenarios. I kept emergency funds safe. I lined up a friend to help if need be, not because I wanted drama, but because builders always have backup plans. Every structure needs bracing. I practiced how I'd speak when he asked, when he begged, when he argued. I practiced calm. He was used to emotion. He wasn't used to control. That was the advantage I rehearsed, shutting down manipulation with clarity. I'm not paying anymore. Here's the date. Figure it out. And then the hardest part, waiting. The plan is only half the job. The rest is patience. I kept living, but I kept the binder on the desk, a quiet reminder of the work I'd done. I went about my afternoons fixing the fence, painting the shutters, doing the everyday things that remind you of why you built the house in the first place. The normalcy helped me. It kept me human. Finally, I set the date. Not with fireworks, but with a pencil mark in my calendar, the day of the next scheduled mortgage withdrawal. When the bank called about the missed payment, that would be the moment the illusion fell away. Not a speech, not an accusation, just an absence of funding and the facts the binder held. The rest would unfold in its slow, merciless logic. So I tightened everything down. Paperwork in order, lawyer consulted, contingencies laid, the letter tucked away, the date circled, and then I waited. Not with glee. I'm not a monster, but with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Because sometimes the kindest revenge is the one that teaches the lesson and then lets the world take it from there. And when the month turned and the bank noticed the missing payment, that's when the real test would begin. That's when Daniel would learn the difference between assuming ownership and earning responsibility. And that's when the house, the home I built, would finally speak the truth. When you set a trap, you don't spring it too early. You wait until the moment it snaps shut on its own. And the moment came exactly as I knew it would, with a letter from the bank slid into our mailbox. I got home before Daniel. The envelope was thick, official. I slid it open with the same utility knife I'd used 1,000 times on wood and drywall. Inside, notice of delinquent payment. Cold factual language with numbers and dates. I placed it in the center of the kitchen table, neat and square like a centerpiece. Then I waited. Door slams, heavy boots on the floor. "Hey, Dad, did you pick up groceries?" "I'm starving." He walks into the kitchen, stops when he sees the letter, picks it up, frowns. "What's this?" "Open it, read." He tears it open, eyes scanning. His face shifts. Confusion, then irritation, then a flicker of panic. This says the mortgage is past due. "Did you miss a payment or something?" "No, I stopped paying." Silence, heavy. He blinks like he misheard what I said. I stopped paying. As of last month, I don't cover this house anymore. What? Daniel snaps. What the hell do you mean? You stopped. You can't just... It's your responsibility. It was my responsibility. Past tense. I fulfilled it for decades. Built these walls, paid every bill, covered every late fee when you dropped the ball. But responsibility doesn't mean servitude, and I don't owe you another dime. You're laughing nervously, trying to brush it off. You're joking. You wouldn't let the bank come after us. This is your house, Dad. I nod. Exactly. My house. My name on the deed. My money that kept you there for over a decade. Which means I get to decide when that ends. And it ended last month. Watching his face. That was the moment his confidence cracked like plaster under strain. All those years of smirking, all the digs, all the entitlement they drained out of him in seconds, replaced with a fear he didn't know how to mask. You can't do this. This place is supposed to be mine. You said you wanted me to have it one day. It was my house, but not like this. Not while you treat me like I'm already gone. You don't get to inherit respect you never gave. You don't get to claim ownership you never earned. So what, you'd rather let the bank take it than pass it down to your own son? You'd rather see it gone than let me have it. I'd rather see it destroyed than handed to someone who only values the roof, not the man who built it. That shut him up. For a second anyway. But sons like Daniel, entitlement doesn't vanish overnight. It claws, it sputters, it demands. Daniel pleading now. Okay, fine. Maybe I said some things. Maybe I acted like it was mine already. But that's how family talks, right? You know, I didn't mean it. I heard you, Daniel. Every word. The jokes at Thanksgiving, the plans you made on the phone when you thought I wasn't listening. You meant it enough to show your true self. And that was enough for me. You're ruining everything. You can't just flip a switch and walk away from this. I can. And I did. And the beauty is, I don't need to. Yell about it. The bank will handle the rest. The world doesn't care about your expectations, Daniel. It only cares about what's written in ink, and every line is in my name, not yours. He stormed around the kitchen, hands in his hair, pacing like a trapped animal. For the first time in years, he realized the power wasn't his. And I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't need to. Dad, come on. Just cover this month. Just until I figure things out. I'll get a job. I'll start paying you back. Please, don't let them take the house. Too late. I already told you I'm done. The payment stopped, and so did my patience. You wanted control, Daniel? Now you have it, so control it. Handle the bills, handle the repairs, handle the bank. The house you thought was yours is finally your responsibility. Let's see how you do when Daddy isn't your safety net. That broke him more than any screaming match could. I saw it in his eyes. The realization that he wasn't just losing the house, he was losing the illusion of being in charge. And I sat there calm, steady, letting the silence speak. Daniel sinks into a chair, staring at the letter in his hands. His chest heaves, but no words come out. The silence hangs like thick smoke between us. This house doesn't belong to you, Daniel. It never did. And maybe now you'll finally understand that nothing in life ever will until you learn how to earn it. And just like that, it was done. The confrontation wasn't fireworks. It wasn't shouting. It was truth. Truth with teeth. Truth he couldn't laugh away. For years he thought he was pushing me out. But in one letter, one silence, one refusal to pay, I showed him the reality. He had no power, no house, no hold. And as the silence stretched between us, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace, because the trap had closed, and Daniel finally knew it. After the confrontation, things moved quickly. It always does when money is involved. Banks don't wait for family drama to settle. They don't care about apologies or intentions. They just care about numbers, and the numbers die. Then add up. A week later, another letter came. Then phone calls, then warnings. Daniel tried to ignore them, stacking envelopes on the counter like maybe if he didn't open them, the problem wouldn't exist, but every unopened envelope is just another nail in the coffin. I watched him crumble in silence, his pacing at night, his snapping at anyone who dared ask him about bills, his frantic phone calls to friends asking for loans. No one wanted to touch it. No one wants to bail out someone who sneered about having everything under control just a month earlier. 2 months in the foreclosure notice arrived. Big bold letters, legal tone final. He stormed into the living room, waving it in my face like I'd betrayed him. This is your fault. You could have stopped this. You're letting them take our house. Not our house, my house. And if I let it go, that's my decision. You're the one who tried to take ownership before you'd earned it. This is just the consequence. He froze. For once, no reply, because even in his rage he knew I was right. Small towns have big mouths. Word spread fast. People noticed the lawn growing wild, the paint peeling, the letters piling up in the mailbox. Neighbors whispered. Old friends who once praised Daniel's confidence now avoided his calls. He went from the man who bragged about his future inheritance to the man losing his roof in real time. It wasn't just financial collapse, it was social. The invitations stopped. The phone stayed silent. Every person who once nodded along with his arrogance melted away when the truth became undeniable. He didn't own anything. He never did. One night he came into the kitchen, eyes bloodshot, voice raw. He'd been drinking not enough to slur, just enough to strip away the last of his pride. Dad, please sign it over to me. Transfer the deed before the bank takes it. At least let me try to fix it. Let me have something I already gave you, everything I had. Daniel, years, money, sacrifice. And you treated it like it was owed to you. Why would I hand over the deed now when you've proven you don't respect it or me? Because I'm your son. Being my son was supposed to mean more than blood. It was supposed to mean loyalty, respect, responsibility. You gave me none of that, and now you're asking for the reward anyway. His face crumbled. He had no argument left, just silence and the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. 3 months later, it was official. The foreclosure went through. The house was no longer ours. Daniel stood in the driveway with a duffel bag staring at the for sale sign staked in the front yard. His jaw clenched, eyes red. For once he didn't yell, he didn't even speak. He just looked at the house, the one he thought was his kingdom, and saw it for what it was, gone. I walked past him without a word, keys in my pocket, heading toward the truck. He didn't follow. He didn't have the strength. That silence was louder than any shouting match we'd ever had. And that was the fallout. Not a blaze of glory, not a grand scene, just emptiness, a hollow space where entitlement used to live. The house was gone. His pride was gone. The illusion was gone. And I felt nothing but calm, because revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's just letting the world handle what you no longer will. Daniel wanted to push me out of the home I built. Instead, I pushed us both out. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter. Time has a way of stripping away illusions. After the foreclosure, Daniel vanished for a while. I heard rumors he was sleeping on a friend's couch. Someone else said they'd seen him at the bar too many nights in a row. But he didn't come to me, not right away. Pride, I suppose, or maybe shame. It took 3 months before he finally showed up again. It was a rainy evening, the kind that makes the house feel smaller, the walls closer. I heard the knock before I even saw his silhouette through the glass. Slow, hesitant, not the arrogant pounding he used to do when he still believed the house was his. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. The sharp confidence in his face was gone, replaced with hollow cheeks and eyes that looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. Dad, can we talk? Talking never hurt anyone. Come in. He stepped inside, dripping rain onto the entryway floor. He didn't even look around the house like he used to. He just stood there, clutching his jacket like it was armor he couldn't take off. I messed up. I thought I knew better. I thought the house meant security. that if I had it, I'd never feel small again. But I see now it wasn't mine to take, and I treated you like you didn't matter." He said it flat. No theatrics. His voice cracked in places he used to fill with arrogance. For the first time in years, he sounded like my son again. The boy who used to trail me in the workshop asking questions, not the man who had turned entitlement into a weapon. "Daniel, do you know what hurt the most? Not that you wanted the house. Not even that you tried to shove me aside. What cut the deepest was how quickly you forgot what it cost me to give it all to you. Years of double shifts, calloused hands, bills paid late so you could have shoes for school food on the table, and you tossed it aside like it meant nothing. I know I was blind. I thought you'd always just be there cleaning up after me, making it work. I didn't realize you were done. I had to be done, because if I wasn't, you'd never learn, Daniel, desperate. I don't care about the house anymore. I just want you back. I don't want to lose my father, too." The words hung heavy in the air. Rain tapped against the windows. My hands clenched the arm of my chair, not out of anger, but to keep my voice steady. "You haven't lost me, but you lost the right to think of me as a safety net. I'll be here as a father, not as a rescuer, not as a man you can lean on without standing on your own. What do I need to do? Tell me, I'll do it. You start by finding your own place. Earn it. Doesn't matter if it's a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint. It has to be yours. Then you get a job and you keep it, not for a week, not for a month. Show me you can hold steady for a year. Until then, I'll talk to you. I'll answer your calls. But don't ask me for money. Don't ask me to bail you out. This time you stand or fall on your own. And if I fail, then you get back up and try again, because that's life. And if you can't learn that lesson, then no house in the world would ever save you." He sat there, head bowed, and for the first time in years, I believed he might finally understand. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But the seed was planted. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about drawing boundaries strong enough to protect the future. And as I watched my son leave that night, shoulders hunched, but steps steadier than before, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Time has a way of softening sharp edges. The fallout, the foreclosure, the shouting matches, they all feel distant now, like echoes bouncing off walls that no longer exist. The house is gone, but in its place something else grew, something quieter, something stronger. I never thought losing a home could bring peace, but it did. Because the house was never really the point. Respect was. Boundaries were. And finally, after years of silence and resentment, I stood firm enough to demand both. It's been a year since the foreclosure. Daniel didn't sink, though, for a while. It looked like he might. He got a small place across town, cracked linoleum, buzzing fridge, one window that doesn't open all the way, but it's his. He pays the rent himself, and when he talks about it, there's a hint of pride in his voice. He found steady work, too, not glamorous, not the kind of job he used to boast about, but it pays. More importantly, he shows up every day. He doesn't lean on me anymore to carry him. For the first time in a long time, he's carrying himself. I see the change in his eyes. Less entitlement, more humility. He visits now, not with demands, but with conversation. He doesn't assume a seat at the head of the table. He asks. He listens. He's learning slowly that family isn't about inheritance. It's about respect. One Sunday afternoon, he came over with groceries. Nothing fancy, just some bread, some vegetables, a carton of eggs. He set them on the counter and said almost shyly, "Thought you could use a few things." It wasn't about the food, it was about the gesture. A year ago, he would have laughed at the idea of giving instead of taking. That bag of groceries weighed more than gold because it meant he understood now. Relationships aren't built on entitlement. They're built on effort. I don't kid myself. The damage we did to each other won't vanish overnight. Trust takes time. Respect takes practice. But there's something different in the way we sit together now. Less tension, more honesty. Like maybe we finally stepped out of a storm that lasted far too long. And I learned something too. I spent years thinking sacrifice was the highest form of love, that giving everything, no matter the cost, was what a father was supposed to do. But sacrifice without boundaries isn't love. It's surrender by taking back the home, by letting it go instead of letting him destroy me with it. I taught both of us a lesson I should have taught long ago. Love doesn't mean enabling, it means holding each other accountable. I live smaller now. No sprawling house, no endless bills, just a place I can manage on my own, and it's enough, more than enough. Because I wake up without bitterness, I wake up free. The funny thing is, for all his anger, Daniel seems lighter too. Stripped of the illusion that he was owed something, he's finally learning the satisfaction of earning something. Maybe that's the only real inheritance I could give him, the push to stand on his own 2 feet. So here's what I've learned. Family isn't defined by blood alone, it's defined by respect, by boundaries, by choices made every single day. My son tried to push me away. He tried to take the home I built with my own hands, and in losing it, we both gained something better. He gained humility, I gained peace. And together we finally started to learn what it really means to be family.